At the end of Dune Part 2, Paul Atreides has won. He has avenged his father, liberated the Fremen, and seized the Imperial throne. It is the triumphant ending every hero story promises. But the story doesn't stop there, and for the next 12 years, a holy war in Paul's name, a jihad, spreads across the universe, killing tens of billions. This leads to the tragic events of the second book, Dune Messiah. A conspiracy moves against him, his beloved Chani dies, and Paul, blinded and trapped by his visions, abdicates the throne and walks into the desert, leaving his empire in chaos. It is from the ashes of that tragedy that our story begins today. 9 years after Paul's disappearance, the Imperium is ruled by his sister, Alia, and at the center of it all are his children, the twins Leto and Ghanima, who are about to confront a destiny far more terrible than their father's. Today, we dive into the third chapter of the Dune saga, Children of Dune, the story of what happens when a Messiah's empire begins to rot from the inside, and his heirs are forced to consider a sacrifice that will change the course of humanity forever. But before we go any further, a quick but very important spoiler warning. This video will cover the major plot points and the ultimate fate of several key characters from the book Children of Dune. If you are sensitive to spoilers, this is your moment to turn back. For everyone else, let's dive in. So 9 years have passed since Paul's disappearance. The Imperium is ruled by his sister, Alia, acting as holy regent. The government and the religion are one, and the Church of Muad'Dib is now the most powerful force the universe has ever known. Arrakis is no longer just Dune. It is the holy center of human existence, and pilgrims flock by the millions to worship at the home of their slain god. On the surface, Paul's empire is a success, but beneath the surface, its sickness is festering. That sickness begins with Alia herself. We need to talk about the concept of abomination. The Bene Gesserit have a rule: never allow a person to be awakened in their ancestral memories while still in the womb. A mind that has not yet formed its own identity, its own ego, will be overwhelmed by the thousands of personalities within. One of these ancestral egos, often the most dominant and malevolent, will eventually seize control. The person becomes a vessel, possessed by one of their own ancestors. This is Alia's tragedy, and in a moment of supreme cosmic irony, the ghost that has taken root in her mind is that of her maternal grandfather, the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. This is the kind of psychological horror that makes Children of Dune so difficult to adapt. A director would need to show this internal war, perhaps with Alia arguing with her own reflection, her voice momentarily dropping into the Baron's menacing tone. It's a brilliant, terrifying concept. The Atreides' greatest enemy now rules their empire from within the body of a holy saint, and almost no one knows. But two people do know, and at the heart of this decaying empire are Paul's 9-year-old twins, Leto II and Ghanima, and they are not normal children. Like Alia, they are preborn, holding millennia of human history in their minds. They speak with the wisdom of ages, finishing each other's sentences, and calmly discussing ancient history as if it were a memory from their own childhood. They see the ghost of the Baron puppeteering their aunt, and they are secretly plotting against her, biding their time. But they carry the same curse. They too are in danger of abomination. Their central conflict isn't just the political intrigue of the court, it's an internal battle to see if they can integrate the wisdom of their ancestors without being consumed. At the same time, the Fremen's ancient dream is coming true. The ecological transformation of Arrakis is underway. There are clouds in the sky. It has begun to rain, but the paradise comes at a terrible price. Leto and Ghanima understand the great irony that Alia, in her possessed ambition, ignores. The new moisture is poison to the great sandworms. The titans of the desert are dying, and if the worms die, the spice dies with them. And when the spice is gone, the universe collapses. Herbert shows us that every paradise has its cost, and the dream of a green Arrakis is a death sentence for the entire Imperium. This is the stage Herbert sets: a possessed regent, 2 ancient children masquerading as 9-year-olds, and a dying planet. And into this chaos, a figure from the past is about to return, an act that will set in motion the true purpose of Children of Dune. The catalyst that shatters this fragile, rotting peace is the return of a ghost from the past, the Lady Jessica. After nearly 2 decades on Caladan, she journeys back to Arrakis, ostensibly to visit her grandchildren, but in truth, she has rejoined the Bene Gesserit and has been sent to investigate a horrifying possibility: that her own daughter and grandchildren have succumbed to abomination. Her return is a political bombshell. To the priesthood and the pilgrims, she is the holy mother of the Messiah. To Alia, she is a rival for power. And to the twins, she is both a beloved grandmother and a dangerous agent of the sisterhood they must outmaneuver. Jessica serves as our eyes, and through her, we see the true extent of the decay. She sees the corruption of the priesthood, the loss of the fierce Fremen culture as they become soft city dwellers, and the terrifying, alien maturity of her 9-year-old grandchildren. But most importantly, her Bene Gesserit senses confirm her deepest fear the moment she confronts her daughter. The rumors were all true. Alia was lost. This is where we believe a filmmaker would need to truly get creative. To show Alia's possession isn't just about hearing the Baron's voice. It's in the subtle tells, a slight shift in posture, a cruel glint in her eye that doesn't belong, a fleeting expression of pure Harkonnen contempt. Jessica sees all of this, and she knows she is now in a battle for the soul of the Atreides dynasty. The political situation explodes when House Carino makes its move. When Sishia, the sister of Princess Irulan, launches an assassination attempt on the twins, smuggling 2 deadly Leza tigers onto Arrakis and unleashing them in the desert. The attack fails, as the twins are far from helpless, but it serves as the catalyst for their own grand, secret plan. They fake Leto's death. Ghanima, in an act of incredible mental discipline, uses a form of self-hypnosis to bury the truth in her own mind, making herself truly believe her beloved brother is dead. This allows her to withstand the interrogation of any Bene Gesserit truthsayer. And Leto, now a ghost to the universe, walks alone into the deep desert, seeking a path that will save humanity, even if it will cost him his own. To understand Children of Dune, we have to understand that Alia is not a simple villain. She is perhaps the most tragic figure in the entire saga. She is a victim of her own birth, a casualty of her mother's choices. The Baron Harkonnen, the ghost in her mind, is not just a roaring monster. He is a master manipulator. He presents himself to her as an advisor, a confidant. He offers her counsel, helps her navigate the treacherous politics of the Empire, and gives her access to the cunning and ruthlessness that she and Atreides lacks. He offers her pleasure and power in exchange for control, slowly seducing her into becoming the very thing her family fought to destroy. The Baron's influence spills out, poisoning the Empire. Her rule becomes increasingly paranoid and tyrannical. She alienates Stilgar, who represents the soul of the old Fremen. She drives away Duncan Idaho, who sees the Harkonnen taint in her and cannot bear it. Her actions spark a full-blown civil war, pitting the traditionalist Fremen of the desert against her own Imperial forces. The great tragedy is that Alia knows what is happening to her. She fights it, but the more she fights, the more she is forced to rely on the Baron's cunning to survive, and the deeper his hooks sink into her soul. She is a prisoner in her own body, on a path to self-destruction, and is dragging the entire universe down with her. And all the while, her nephew is walking into the sand, preparing to become a monster of a very different kind. It's here, alone in the deep desert, that the true and terrible focus of the entire Dune saga is finally revealed. Through agonizing spice trances, Leto II sees the future with a terrifying clarity that even his father could not withstand. He sees the Golden Path, a narrow, brutal, but necessary lifeline for the human species. He sees that, left to its own devices, humanity's future contains stagnation, decay, and eventually a final, inescapable extinction at the hands of forces yet to be born. Paul saw this future, but he flinched. He chose the love of Chani and the peace of death over the monstrous sacrifice required to save his species. Leto decided he will not make the same choice. This is the central theme of the book, and it seems that Children of Dune argues that to save humanity from the trap of a single, predictable destiny, one man must sacrifice not just his life, but his very humanity. He travels to the lost sietch of Jacurutu and finds the sand trout, the larval form of the great sandworms. In a moment of supreme, horrifying sacrifice, he strips himself bare and allows the leathery creatures to attach to his body, to cover him, to become a living, second skin. This fusion begins a metamorphosis that will span millennia. It grants him superhuman strength, speed, and near invulnerability, but it locks him on a path to becoming something utterly alien. He is no longer human. He is the beginning of the next sandworm cycle, the future God Emperor. While Leto forges his new body, the mysterious preacher continues to speak heresy in the capital, decrying the corruption of the Church of Muad'Dib. As Alia and the twins long suspected, this is Paul Atreides. He survived his walk in the desert, and he has returned not as a god, but as a critic. with one final mission: to tear down the very religion that was built in his name. His final act is a grand piece of theater. He confronts Alia on the steps of the Great Temple in front of thousands of pilgrims. He calls out her abomination and the lies of her church. In a moment orchestrated by his own prescient knowledge, he provokes one of Alia's fanatical priests, who lunges forward and stabs him. Paul Atreides, the man, dies, but in doing so, he finally kills the myth of Muad'Dib, the Messiah. It's a tragic and necessary end. Paul understood that for humanity to live, his godhead had to die, making way for the far more terrible and far more necessary god that his son was becoming. With his father's myth shattered, Leto II returns from the desert. He is a force of nature, a figure of terrifying power. He strides into the temple and confronts the possessed Alia. The psychic battle between the ghost of the Baron inside her and the billions of lives inside Leto is swift and absolute. Alia, broken and momentarily freed from the Baron's control, takes her own life, ending the Harkonnen's curse once and for all. Leto Atreides takes the throne. He is now the undisputed ruler of the universe. He marries his sister, Ghanima, in a political ceremony to secure his power, but arranges for her to have children with the Corrino heir, Farad'n, secretly continuing the Atreides bloodline through a new, hidden path. His grip on the universe is absolute. His long, terrible peace, the Golden Path, has now begun. The story of Children of Dune is a dark and complex epic. It's about the decay that follows conquest, the burden of destiny, and the horrifying sacrifices required to save a species from its own self-destructive nature. Leto II has saved humanity, but he has become a tyrant to do so, a lonely godworm, destined to rule for over 3,500 years. His story, the longest and most profound in the series, is told in the next book, God Emperor of Dune.